Addressing a workshop on national media and current challenges, Information Minister Al-Assad stresses that Syria has succeeded to become a great state thanks to its people, army and leadership. Al-Moallem affirms to the UN General Assembly that stopping the hostile policies against Syria is the first road to a solution to the crisis. Lavrov notes that the convention of the Geneva Conference will be in the middle next of November, calling on the supporters of the Syrian opposition to pressure it to take part in the conference. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Yerado Krikorian with the news in English. Under the patronage of the Prime Minister and the Minister of Information, and with the participation of news media men and analysts from several countries, a three-day workshop was opened in Damascus today on national media and current challenges. Information Minister Amran al-Zarbi said in his word that the workshop aimed at shedding light on the points of strength and addressing the points of weakness in order to come out with recommendations that would pave the way for developing national media performance. As Rabi said, Syria has succeeded to be a great state thanks to its people, army and leadership, and has forced the world to listen to the voice of Damascus. There is no power on earth that can cause Syria, the state, the homeland and the people to fall, Mr. Al-Zarbi added. On his part, head of the Journalists Federation, Ilyas Murad, said, journalists and news media men are partners in the process of sacrifice and giving to clear the homeland of terrorists through defending it with their sincere, truthful words, not with lies or deceptions. They played a major role in wiping out fabrications and rewriting history with honor, Mr. Murad stressed. Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Walid al-Moallem has affirmed that there is no civil war in Syria and the war that exists there is against terrorism. Delivering Syria's word at the 68th session of the UN General Assembly, Mr. al-Moallem said, the first correct road towards a solution to the crisis is the halt of the aggressive policies against Syria, and that any talk about a political solution in light of the ongoing financial and military support of terrorism by certain states against Syria is nothing but a mere illusion. Mr. al-Moallem said Syria's step to join the agreement on the prohibition of chemical weapons has proved to the world Syria's commitment to its stand against the use of any such weapons and has placed the world before its responsibilities to prohibit the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction in the Middle East. Mr. al-Moallem reiterated Syria's commitment to a political solution, affirming that those who want such a solution in Syria must stop all the hostile practices and policies against it and should head to Geneva without any preconditions. Mr. al-Moallem stressed that the war on terrorism is not only Syria's war, because those terrorists will return to the countries they had come from, and then there will be no state in the world which will be safe from such terrorism that knows no borders or geography. At the conclusion of Syria's word, Mr. al-Moallem said that what is happening in Syria should not distract us from our main cause in Palestine and the Golan, affirming Syria's adherence to its national right to recover the occupied Syrian Golan completely until the 4th of June 1967 borders, and its support for the Palestinian people's legitimate rights, particularly their right to repatriation, self-determination and the establishment of their own independent state with Jerusalem as its capital. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has affirmed in a joint statement with Chairman of the Islamic Cooperation Organization Akmal ad-Din Ihsan Oglu that the aim of the Geneva II is to sit at the table of dialogue in order to reach a peaceful solution to the crisis in Syria. He called on the states that support the opposition to pressure it to attend the conference due to be held in the middle of next November. Concerning the use of chemical weapons, Minister Lavrov said, the UN inspectors did not visit the area where evidence proved the use of chemical weapons in Aleppo. He added that the evidence presented by Russia to the UN Security Council on the use by armed men of chemical weapons in Al-Ghouta was conclusive.
кто думает о судьбах своей страны, о том, чтобы она оставалась.
On his part, director of the Russian Presidency Bureau, Sergei Ivanov, said the reasonable Syrian opposition, as he called it, can be invited to attend the special international conference on Syria due to be held in Geneva. In a session of dialogue with Russian news media, Ivanov said the West has started to realize the need to distinguish between the various sides of the opposition and to stop the attempts to convince Al-Qaeda and other extremists with the talk about Geneva II, affirming that those sides should not be provided with weapons. Ivanov said the war in Syria is no longer between the government and the opposition. He pointed out that if the West arms the so-called Free Army, there will be no ground to believe that Al-Qaeda organization will not simply take control of such weapons. He added that the Syrian opposition members are split and hate one another. Russian permanent representative at the UN headquarters in Geneva, Alexei Borodavkin, called for the lifting of economic sanctions imposed on Syria, adding that the unilateral sanctions have led to worsening the humanitarian situation in the country. Russia today quoted Borodavkin as saying in a statement issued today that Russia has carried hundreds of tons of urgent humanitarian aid to the displaced Syrians in the countries neighboring Syria, affirming Russia's willingness to continue providing assistance within the framework of bilateral cooperation as well as through international organizations. He pointed out that Russia has transferred $10 million to the office of the UN High Commissioner for Refugees in order to help the displaced Syrians in Lebanon and Jordan. It's worth mentioning that Russia sends humanitarian aid for the Syrian people on a regular basis. The last shipment of food arrived in Latakia on the 27th of last September. Welcome back. In Daraa, the Syrian Arab Army forces eliminated a large number of terrorists of Jabhat al-Nusra, including the latter's leader in the village of Sahm al-Jolan, terrorist Bilal Muhiddin al-Nuwahi, and most of the members of his gang, including terrorist Maher al-Mahmoud from Nafa'a village. The army also clashed with another terrorist group in Al-Faqi'a village, killing the leader of the so-called Jabhat al-Nusra in Inkhil village, terrorists Jabir al-Nasser, and most of the members of his group. In Latakia countryside, the Syrian Arab Army forces killed a number of terrorists. Some of them were Egyptians, Kuwaitis, Lebanese and Jordanians in the villages of Al-Rawda, Al-Rabi'a and Dorin in the northern countryside of Latakia. They also destroyed 2 Grad missiles and large quantities of weapons and ammunition. In Iraq, 2 people were killed and 5 others injured in a terrorist attack that targeted the building of the Anti-Explosive Directorate in Takrit. Iraqi police said that a suicide bomber attacked the building of the Anti-Explosive Directorate south of Takrit. The blast was followed by an attack with mortar, medium and light guns, killing 2 people and injuring others. The source added that the clashes between gunmen and security forces continued in the vicinity of the Directorate and the neighboring buildings. The attack came a day after a series of terrorist bombings that hit different parts of Baghdad, killing 51 people and wounding 155 others. In occupied Palestine, a 36-year-old Palestinian young man, Ismail al-Hanajira, was killed by the Israeli occupation forces' gunfire as another Palestinian was arrested north of Gaza Strip. Meanwhile, and in a new attempt to tighten the siege on the Palestinians who have been already suffering from siege imposed on them several years ago, the Israeli occupation forces fired 4 shells on the agricultural land east of the town of Beit Hanun, north of the Gaza Strip, burning it completely. Finally, for the first time in nearly 2 decades, the U.S. federal government fell in a partial shutdown early today after the Congress failed to vote on the budget. So the United States entered into its new fiscal year without a budget. President Obama was shocked by the failure of the Congress to vote on the budget after congressional Republicans demanded changes in the nation's health care law as a price for essential federal funding, and President Barack Obama and Democrats refused. Obama laid the blame at the feet of the Republicans, whom he accused of seeking to tie government funding to ideological demands. The results of the Congress' failure to vote on the budget began to pick fruit as an estimated 800,000 federal workers faced furloughs today, while only some parts of the government, including the military and air traffic controllers, remained open. However, the interruption in federal funding sent divided government into territory unexplored in nearly 2 decades. With this, we end our news for today. Thank you for watching. For more details about Syria and the region, and to view this bulletin again, you can always visit our website in English, syriaonline.sy. Now to latest business and market news with Nariman Qassam, but after a short break.